I'm going to show you how docsndata allows you to define an endpoint to get your data, probably easier than anything I've seen elsewhere. That's a big claim. But it's back to the car wash model again. I've got a car wash business where I've got customers and bookings. So I have to come out at a particular date to Jimmy to do a full wash at this address. And then on a separate date at a separate time, I've got to do a different service at a different address. But let's say I want to expose this data over an endpoint to an arbitrary third-party system. So switch the app into designer mode, and then I can create a new endpoint and give the endpoint a name. We'll call it bookings. When I get the bookings between a particular date, I'm going to call it get bookings. Now the handler for an endpoint is a logic sheet. We don't have any logic sheets yet, so let's make one of them. And the logic sheet we'll call bookings. And we want to get the bookings between two dates in a date range. So we need two properties. We need a from date, which is a date. And we need a to date, which is a date. And then we want to fetch data. So we want to fetch the bookings, and we'll call that in the output bookings. But we want to fetch them between the date range. So where the date is on or after the from date, and the date is on or before the to date. Now I can test that. If I do the whole month of May, I have my two bookings, and that's how it'll come back in the JSON output from the endpoint. So now I can go back to my endpoint. I can choose the booking. It gives me the URL, it gives me the date. If I run it, it tells me that I need to provide values. So if I do X and Y here, it needs to tell me, it tells me that it's expecting a date in ISO format. So 2022-05-01 is the beginning of May. And that's the, how many, 30 days in May, I think, I don't know, whatever. And if I run that, I get the full request back. And now I have an endpoint, and it ran in 500 millis. It's about the time it usually takes. It's got to load the logic definition, it's got to load all the models, it's got to create the query, it's got to load the data and transform it for you. If you want the data to come back in a different format, we go back to the logic sheet. Endpoints don't do anything other than use logic sheets and expose them at URLs. So really, when you need to do work about the result, do it in the logic sheet. The nice thing about that is the logic sheet is testable in the app independently of the endpoint, and it can be used for other things. The logic sheet can be used for other things like reports and that kind of stuff. So if I copy this JSON, I want to change how it looks in terms of the output. Copy this. This is the old JSON thing that we'll have seen multiple times before in previous videos. So that allows me to get the bookings. If I want to get just the times, booking.time, that gives me the times. So if I copy this and put it into the transform and run that transform, again we'll do the whole of, now we get back times. And if I run the endpoint again, 2022 -01 05-05-01 to the end. Run that. Now I get back the amended output. Simplest possible way that I can think of to produce an endpoint. Have fun, let me know.